once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. If you heard the first two parts, welcome back after immediately listening to the first two parts of this. I'm Bob McDonald. Joining me, instead of Matt Dudek, who I now really know is secretly happy he wasn't joining us, is John Parker.
Hey, Bob. Been a while.
All of 30 seconds. And also joining us is Kyle Rossi.
I think the Eagles just scored again.
Did they?
No, I'm just saying that. I'm just assuming.
I mean, you could be. I mean, but anyway. John, you can find on Twitter at Horizon John. Kyle, you can find across all social media generally at Kyle HZRT. You can find us on the web at horizonroundtable.com. You can find all of the links to all of our social sites, and where podcasts are available at horizonroundtable.com/subscribe. Become a patron at patreon.com/horizonroundtable. Now, I really thought we were going to be able to squeeze this into one episode, and it is metastasized into three, and metastasize is about the right word for it.
I don't know what you were thinking with that.
What I was thinking was that we would talk really fast, and that would be the end of it, but that sure as hell isn't what happened. So we've talked about the rest. Let's talk about the best. So we got our top two teams on both the men's and the women's side to talk about. And let's talk about the women's side first. Let's talk about Green Bay. And dear God, I thought for sure we were going to – I'm still blown away that Kevin Borsett's not there anymore. Totally blown away.
I think I don't remember what I said in the post. I think I said like change happens at Green Bay about as often as glacial movement or something. Some kind of tired metaphor, but
pretty much, yeah.
Stands.
Continental drift. Continental drift.
Continental drift. That was that. Okay, that was it. But I mean, yeah. So of course Kevin Borsett retires. They bring in a former player program legend as the new head coach, who then hires another program legend.
He graduated the same year.
That's right, John. You're old now, too. Welcome to our world.
I honestly thought you were older than that, so I guess I don't know what you're doing wrong there. That's all right. But, yeah, so brought in another program legend assistant coach. Of course, another one of the assistants is, of course, somebody familiar to Cleveland State fans a little bit there. But yeah,
Hey, Peterson Abiad, yeah.
I was blanking on her name. You picked me up there. Appreciate that.
I'm sure she remembers me well and probably regrets it every day.
She was at Cleveland State for a long time, but obviously as a Wisconsin person, has been around Wisconsin for even longer. So,
yep.
You know, you struggle to look at this and you wonder, like, I think the first question that comes to mind is like, how different is Green Bay going to be with a new head coach? And you look at like you know, Kayla Karras was at South Dakota. You look at like their pace numbers, and they're a little bit faster than Green Bay. It would be hard not to be faster than Green Bay, but not that much faster. I think she's definitely going to put her own stamp on the program, but at the same thing, I think a lot of things, you know, they brought in two pretty good transfers this year, but they both came from Eastern Illinois, where, of course, her college coach, the former Green Bay coach, Matt Ballant, was coaching at the time. So
that's the part of this that I find the most interesting, is that she was actually at Green Bay and Borsett didn't coach her. It was Matt Ballant.
Right. She was at Green Bay when Borsett was at Michigan pounding press conference tables. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it was at that moment when I knew that Kevin Borsett would haunt my dreams.
I feel bad. Like I haven't interacted with Kevin Borsett a ton, but I have a couple times, and he's always been very, very nice to me. And I feel bad that I've reduced him to that, 2-second clip of him banging the table.
I mean, the funny part is like he owns it though. He does. I mean, he even mentioned it during the. During his retirement press conference, and it's like, yeah, I mean, to his credit, I mean, he totally owned it.
But yeah, so like, you want to say like, oh, well, they have a new coach, they're going to be different. They're not going to be that much different. They, they hired a new coach, and the first thing they did was immediately turn inward to what they already knew. So I think that's kind of your indicator right there. They also have obviously a ridiculously good veteran team coming back. Bailey Butler, Schreiber, Jasmine Kondrakowicz, Natalie McNeil. Just they're Green Bay is Green Bay. Send tweet.
Yeah, pretty much. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So John, I'm sure that there was a lot of debate on who actually would be first in the men's poll, ours, and we got Milwaukee second.
It was pretty. I mean, there was some split, but no, it was pretty well.
I actually struggled with this myself. I was pretty decisive as to who I picked first. But I saw all the good points as to why Milwaukee could potentially be our top pick. I didn't pick them, but I could see the arguments for it, obviously. And anybody could. I mean, you look at that roster, absolutely.
Yeah, obviously losing BJ Freeman, huge deal, but everyone else in the league lost their BJ Freeman. Like very few.
And again, the crazy thing about losing BJ Freeman, it seemed like it's like I don't want to say it's addition by subtraction, but they lose BJ Freeman. There's no fall off for them.
Well, because they won the portal, if you ask me. We were actually on the emergency Doug Gottlieb got hired podcast when Themis Fultz got announced. That's your point guard.
There you go.
AJ McKee coming in from Bart Lundy's previous stop, Queens, after putting up, almost 19 points a game. That is a huge chunk of the scoring that Freeman's departure left behind. I will say a lot of people are like, oh, well, he averaged almost 19. I don't think if he does that for Milwaukee, I can see certain situations where, I mean, he was barely their leading scorer. They did have another star player, but I think he's probably going to be more in the 15 to 16 point per game range if Milwaukee's going to be what they're expected to be. I
don't see why that wouldn't. I mean, when I look at that, I think, you're right, because I think for Milwaukee, how is that going to be as it relates to the scoring distribution? I think it's going to be, to your point, very broad, because they have so many options. Yeah, not just on the backcourt, but up in the front court too.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I think we had Faison, and we'll talk a little bit about the all league, but yeah, I mean, I know I had Faison Fields as one of my all league picks, and it is absolutely amazing to see. And it's funny because when we had Bart Lundy on the Spaces, apparently there are two Faison Fields. So apparently the key to the success is if Memphis Faison Field shows up. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but it wasn't this good. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
now I'm gonna have to listen to the Spaces again.
You watch the progression of some of the guys that they have coming back. I mean, Fields. You've got Eric Pratt, who they're very much, they were newcomers last year. As the year went on, they kind of found their place, found their role. Pratt kind of got thrown in. The one thing that has me a bit concerned is just how bad the team was without Freeman last year. That stretch where he was out, they were horrific until the Chattanooga game. I do worry that we're putting a little bit too much stock into that one game, really. But you can't discount all the pieces that are coming in, and that's without even knowing, JaMychal Stillwell from JUCO. Is he going to have it? If so, okay. Yeah. It's a whole new ball game where, if you have two consistent post guys plus Darius Duffy for defense, you have John Lovelace, Horizon Crime.
Don't forget that. Yeah.
And I mean, he's almost going to, personally, I loved Lyric Davis after not being sure what he was going to produce last year.
Let's see more of him next year. I see a lot more of him next year.
I think John Lovelace is going to have a chance to do a lot of the same things that he did while also bringing a lot more on offense. I do hope, that we do see a ton of Lyric Davis because those two defensively could be really fun. Just long, athletic. That's kind of their whole team. It's just a bunch of.
You forgot Kentrell Pullian, by the way.
No, I think.
I think the addition of Themis Fulks, I think, is good for Milwaukee because last year Milwaukee, among other issues, it didn't seem to me like Milwaukee had a true, pure point guard. Themis Fulks kind of fills that void.
Themis Fulks is
at least in my estimation.
Yeah, they've never really had like a pure point guard. Now they do.
Yeah, now they do. Exactly. Now they do. And I think I think for the rest of the backcourt, that is going to open things up so much more for them. The only question is, I mean, again, from a playing time standpoint, that's going to be at a premium. or they'll just do what Dennis Gates did a few years back with Cleveland State, just hockey shifts.
Yeah,
you do that too.
That could be an issue for them. It's kind of a situation that you're seeing with a lot of the teams where it's, okay, you're losing that one star guy. Yeah, you're bringing in several pieces that collectively can replace him, but they're all going to need minutes.
Yeah, they really are. But hey, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Let us move forward. Kyle, you know this team better than anybody. It's Cleveland State, and they basically have like the most talented team on the planet right now as far as the Horizon League is concerned. How is everybody gonna get minutes? How are they gonna get their scoring? Because it seems like they're gonna get a bunch of, like, seriously, like you have last season's Player of the Year Colby Maples, the year before's Player of the Year Desi Leo coming back. You have Michaela Purdue. Like, good God, how do you guard against them?
I tried to look this up for the preview post, but it's not that uncommon for teams to have two eventual Players of the Year on their roster at the same time. But having two people who have already won the award and are still in college, that's a little bit something that doesn't happen every day. And you say the Horizon, I don't know, Cleveland State has kind of had a little bit of a bright lights problem, I think, at times when you look at, some of their big high profile non-conference games and, the NCAA tournament game at Villanova and things like that. I'm not convinced that they won't go down and give Ohio State a game in their opener.
Yeah.
If there's a time you want to hit a team like that, it's in the opener when they're trying to figure things out. They've had a little, Ohio State's had a little bit of turnover, but yeah, I mean, like you said, a classic one basketball problem with that team. I was even just before we came on here trying to think about that a little bit. You have.
And by bright lights, are you referring to Terry Pluto just swooping in and doing whatever the hell he does every year? Yeah, I popped off. Someone caught a stray there. Wonder, he's not going to listen to this. He doesn't care.
Harry's talking, boys.
I don't give a shit.
But, you think
sorry,
about
it goes back to what I said last episode about the entire everything around Cleveland State right now. The old me is returning, my friends. And you ain't going to like it. Oh, yeah.
It's, It's really interesting. I mean, that's just, in some ways, you look at what's going on with the university and all that, but the women's basketball program, man, it just keeps building up and up and up. And, we'll see what the future holds with that. But like you said, it's a classic one basketball problem. They have, when you think about it, you have two guard spots. I suppose you have 80 minutes, and there's a way, I don't know if it's the best thing for chemistry, but there's a way to divide that among three people, and so they're all getting a ton of minutes, and they can, Leo and Maples, for sure can play both those positions, and so I don't know whether they're going to do that or try and get all three of them on the floor once. Destiny played a lot of wing her freshman year, so when they had a couple of veteran guards. So there's a lot.
Very interesting though.
It'll be interesting to watch. There's a couple different ways they can play it. I don't know. It's a good problem to have, like everyone always says. And everyone talks about these guards, man, but they're you look at their post rotation. You got Reisman's back. You have Maya Moore, who you want to put yourself in hell. Try googling a women's basketball player named Maya Moore, even if it's spelled differently. But
yeah,
but she's a big time transfer from Seattle. Pauline Hernandez, who she probably stretches the floor a little bit better than the other two, but they have three people that are going to be battling for minutes there. They have just 20,000 different wings that they can throw in there. I mean, it's a stacked roster, and obviously it's always going to come down to the games against Green Bay, but the two great basketball teams. We'll see what happens at the end of the year, I guess.
Absolutely. So obviously, I know I keep asking this question, but I'm going to keep asking this question because reasons. Is this the last year we see Chris Killsmeyer? Is he going to get offered to get? Is he going to get an offer he can't refuse after the season?
Well, it depends. It's always a tough
and what
question.
happens at Cleveland State after that?
I don't think
I know the answer to that question, but
yeah, I don't know. We'll see, but. If somebody would have asked me this question a year ago, I would have said no. He wants to take a shot and see what he can do with this roster for sure.
Yeah.
Once that clears out, and it depends on what they do too. I mean, right? If they disappoint, nobody's going to be offering him. So if they do win another conference title, go back to the NCAA tournament, maybe win games in the NCAA tournament, and that's very explicitly what this team's goal is to win games in the NCAA tournament. If they do that and somebody, throws a couple $1 million at him, there's not really a whole lot that Cleveland State can do about that, especially given their financial situation. But
how you fix your financial situation? Sell more fucking tickets.
It's just, we could go to a fourth part of this podcast if you want to talk about Cleveland State.
No,
it's really. I'm
not letting old me commandeer this thing. All right, we're gonna move on.
For me personally, though, I'll say this. I've lived here my whole life. My mom has 2 degrees from Cleveland State. I now have a degree from Cleveland State. And it's been so frustrating. It's just, especially with this women's team. The men's team's had some recent success, and you just have, couple million people going to watch, Ohio State on Saturday night. And, you have these conference championship level basketball teams playing, 10-minute walk away from Progressive Field, and nobody cares. It's really just unbelievably frustrating.
Yeah, well, they need to. Yeah, but before we move on to Purdue Fort Wayne, I just want to say one more thing about this, because this is some stupid push that they've been doing for years. Cleveland State has. Cleveland State keeps calling themselves Cleveland's Division I team. I'd like to point the tweet that the city of Cleveland posted yesterday, Saturday, about Ohio State. Yeah, so the answer to that question is Cleveland has a Division I team, and it ain't you. Try something else. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Purdue Fort Wayne now. Who up here?
Yeah. Purdue Fort Wayne.
What a terrible segue.
Purdue Fort Wayne was arguably the top team in the Horizon League for the early portion of last year. Absolutely fell apart for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah. It only took 2 weeks, too. That was insane.
Yeah. If you replay that stretch of games 100 times, in 95 of them, they are at least 2-3, probably 3-2, and they're in the hunt for the Horizon League title. There's just no way they dropped we saw they got after that stretch. We're wondering, okay, can IUPUI do it again? Purdue Fort Wayne beat IUPUI by almost 30 points. So no, they couldn't. That was just a.
They put I know Purdue Fort Wayne put a hurting on Oakland a couple of times too, and that was like, yeah, I know that at least one of those hurtings was Matt's still talking about.
Yeah, and that to me is why if they had gone 2-3 during that stretch, they finished tied for third for the league. They are unanimously the pick to win it. They still got, 70% of the votes, 2/3 of the votes, something like that, for first place. But that one little stretch completely changed their season and completely changed everyone's perspective, or some people's perspectives on them. Because other than that, the team at the start of the year, absolutely a contender. They're bringing back 5 of their top 6 guys. The team at the end of the year made it to the that stupid tournament championship.
Why don't we just call that? Let's just call it that stupid tournament because of what they did to Purdue Fort Wayne. Made them go to like Tarleton State and then literally had to go the next day to freaking Norfolk, Virginia.
I'll call it that regardless. Angela Lento's a crazy asshole special.
Well, that's not the word I would use, but okay, let's go with that. The
crazy part is,
just put it to you this way, guys. Now, randos are catching strays in this podcast this week.
Anyway,
let's see. We started with Howard Magdal, then jumped over to Terry Pluto, and now Angela Lento. Congratulations, you're in the barrel.
That's the thing that
we don't. Put it to you this way: there's a reason that we don't follow that account. There's a reason for that.
Other than that 2-week stretch, they check all the boxes for the team you would pick to win. Bringing back most of the roster, having had success last year. The one thing about those postseason tournaments is that there is a overlap with the team running it back the next year. Charlotte had a ton of roster overturn the prior year in the CBI. They went into a new conference, had a new coach because their coach just took an assistant job at Virginia, and they were still, that interim coach they hired, he's the guy now because they had a big jump in success.
Sure.
Their opponent in the game, Eastern Kentucky, did not make the NCAA tournament, but they won the ASUN regular season. There is a track record for teams that bring back players and that succeed in those postseason tournaments, coming back the next year strong. Sometimes it even results in, NCAA tournament appearances, which Purdue Fort Wayne fans, given the way the standings shook out, I hope it doesn't happen. But
did we curse them? Did we curse them by picking them first? I feel like we cursed them.
The last time we picked Milwaukee second, they very much did not finish second. So hopefully,
no, we did not. There were a lot of other reasons for that.
Hopefully, we end up with not cursing anybody.
God, I hope not.
Because that Purdue Fort Wayne team checks the boxes for everything you'd look for in next season's champ, except for that 2 weeks that ruined it.
Except for that 2 weeks that ruined it, yeah.
But even then, even with that, they still won a bunch of games. They still made it far in a postseason.
Again, nothing is never going to be
5 of their top 6 players. And Corey Hadnot was another one of those players who checked a lot of the boxes on that Luke Wynn formula I was talking about, where he could be, Anthony Roberts' departure could mean a lot of opportunities specifically.
Yeah. I think that I think the only question that Purdue Fort Wayne has is at that 4th spot. And there's a lot of guys who could fill that spot. Problem with Corey Hadnot is he's another guard. Do they want to run out 4 guards every game? I don't know if they want to do that. They also have Maximus Nelson. They also have Chandler Cuthrell, the kid from the transfer portal. I mean, and Cuthrell is supposed to be pretty good too. So he may fill that role for them as it relates to and that would be something for them. Absolutely.
Definitely.
I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to them. It's weird that verbal commit. Oh, there he is. I was going to say it's weird verbal commits doesn't have him on there, but they do. But yeah, I think Chandler Cuthrell will probably be the guy at the 4. For now, unless Maximus Nelson. I mean, Maximus Nelson can make an argument to get that starting spot. I think Cuthrell will probably get the 4. I think he'll probably be that guy. That would be my guess. Okay. Would you like to go into the all league teams? We'll talk about the women because it's basically everybody we've already talked about. Basically, what was your thought process here, Kyle? Like, I have 3 Cleveland State people on this first team, and 2 of them have already won this award before, and 1 won the award for us because we picked Michaela Purdue in our postseason award, and Colby Maples is the one who won last year. Although I suspect you although you did make an argument for her as well. But yeah, so you got 3 Cleveland State players, and Destiny Leo's back on top.
And Mickey Purdue was first team all conference, won newcomer of the year last year. It wasn't a case based on nothing, certainly. And she was. Oh no. She went shot for shot with Caitlin Clark for a while in that game at Iowa. She, had 7 3-pointers in the win against Green Bay. So there was but Colby was the point guard, the engine that made the whole thing run. I mean, you couldn't really, Destiny Leo. It's, and I try to tell people this because I think like a lot of people will think that, it's the women's thing. It's the Kyle Rossi show, and it was a vote, man. I didn't necessarily. I don't know that I necessarily would have, as much as I love Destiny, as great of a player as she is, you have that,
why isn't it the Kyle Rossi show? Damn it! Come on.
There's a lot of degree of trust placed in somebody coming off a major injury to declare her preseason player of the year. She is a great player, and I guess it probably is worth mentioning that last year before the injury, she was by far off to the best start of her career. She was like, a lot of Cleveland State's offenses, drive the middle of the paint, get to the line, and she was the primary person who did that and was like 40 for 40 on free throws,
So yeah, let me ask you this, because for preseason we have Natalie. So for our preseason all league we have 3 Cleveland State players and 3 Cleveland State players on the first team, and then for Green Bay we have Natalie McNeil on the first team, and then we have Bailey Butler and Maddie Schreiber on the second team. In the event that Green Bay wins the conference, do you flip those, or does either Schreiber or Butler make an argument to be on first team next year for this season?
Ever since I've been doing this, Green Bay has always been such a struggle because you have the team is obviously a great team, but they're so well balanced. They share the ball so well that you always have these the lead score on the team will have 12 points a game or something like that. And it's pretty hard to vote somebody like that player of the year a lot of the times. And so you have somebody like Natalie McNeil who, scored 30 points in that same game that Mickey Purdue hit the 7 threes. Natalie McNeil had 30 points in that game. I think she had 30 points again in the Horizon League championship game as tournament MVP. So once you have somebody that blows up like that a little bit, it's easy to latch onto them and say, okay, they're Green Bay's star player. We're gonna vote for them player of the year. I think Green Bay always kind of gets screwed on these things because of that, honestly. So will the postseason teams look differently if they win the conference? I think my answer to that would be, well, they have won the conference before and they didn't look any different. So that might be it. It's not for lack of, esteem or anything like that. They're all just phenomenal players. It's, you're always looking for that big scoring average to hang your hat on or something like that. And it's tough. I encourage people that bitch about these sorts of things to try and do it for themselves because it's a lot harder than it looks a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I know with the first, there's only like a handful of like Cleveland State and Green. There's only one non-Cleveland State or Green Bay player on the first team. And you already talked about her, Amelia Bromenschenkel. But then on the second team, yeah. Shout out to the Bromenschenkel family, longtime patrons. Love you guys.
Oh yeah, nicest people ever. But yeah, she's just. I mean, she just. Like I think I said it in the.
I don't think they're going to get to the end of this, but if they do, hey, good for you.
In this very post, I may have said it, but she just does everything you need on the basketball court. And you look at her, she'll drive to the hole, and she's not, she's not like the quickest player you ever see, but she's slippery.
Yeah.
Just be able to somehow matrix warp her body to dodge people a little bit and get to the bucket. She's a phenomenal 3-point shooter, defends well. I mean, she's just an all around hooper. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. And then also on the second team, you talked a little bit about Katie Davidson from IU Indy. We have her as a second teamer, and then the two Milwaukee players, Casey Baumhauer, of course, Horizon Crime coming over from Wright State, and then Cammie Pepler as well.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier Davidson's somebody. I think if IU Indy jumps up and wins some more games than people expect, I think she'll probably end up being a first teamer, maybe even in the Player of the Year conversation. She's another one that's just she's just a scorer. She can true 3-level player, moves well without the ball, very compatible with Kate Bruce's system, and she'll get her buckets one way or the other. That's just the thing about her. I think she led the conference in the scoring last year. Or maybe Hutchinson did. I'm not positive about that, but they were both up there. So she's a great player.
Yeah. On the third team, you have Jordan Riesma from Cleveland State. You talked about Bukashki from Wright State is there. Macy Blevins, Northern. So Macy Blevins sounds like we got her on third team, so clearly she's in a position to definitely acclimate to this new Jeff Hands system. But you also have Lauren Scott and Jasmine Limbo too. Yeah. For the third team, we have those.
I like the way like I said, it was a vote. It wasn't just my opinion, but
that's true. I keep saying that. I keep saying you, and I know there's more than you.
Oh, I know, but yeah, I appreciate that. But
I know it wasn't me because I didn't vote for this. I'm saying it right now, guys. I'm a schmuck. I didn't do it.
I'm giving my stamp of approval because I like the way these three teams broadly, the way they turned out. We hit all of the familiar established names on the first two teams. And then on the third team, we took a few shots on people that maybe don't get a ton of all league recognition a lot of the time. And, we got, Bukashki, a newcomer on there, Jazzy Linbo, who, on Purdue Fort Wayne is just kind of a very underrated. She had a big game at Cleveland State last year. Remember, just a phenomenal distributor out of the post and makes a lot of that stuff run for the Mastodons. So there's, there are people that maybe haven't been recognized by the league, but we're going to take our shot and say that they're going to blow up this year. And I think they do.
So on the men's side, I think we were all pretty uniform on the first team. And then after that, it was a bag of squirrels.
It was the first, I would say 6 players were pretty consistent. It was really tight. And then, it was all over the place after that. And I think that is kind of the theme of what we've talked about before. I mean, in past years, everyone was bringing back, if not their star, then at least a couple guys that you could very easily see stepping into it. I mean, hell, last year, Tanner Holden coming back after being an all-league pick, it was like, okay, that's a no-brainer. This year, with 3 all-league players returning, it was going to be all over the place.
Of course it was.
Obviously, yeah. So all 3 of those previous all-league players made it again. They actually all made first team. It was Brandon Noel, who we have as our player of the year, Rasheed Bello, who was runner-up, and then Jalen Jackson.
That's who Rasheed Bello, I know I haven't been shy about. He was my pick.
Although, this is going to be kind of rough. We caught a little bit.
I think what happened was Bello and Jalen Jackson canceled each other out.
Yeah.
Because you can make an argument for both of those guys.
Yeah, because I think on the actual team last year, it was flipped, where technically, based on how they listed it, I believe Jackson got more votes. We have liked Bello more. We've consistently liked him a little bit more. But yeah, so you have the 3 all-league guys. You have Sam Vincent, who has previously been an all-league guy that we picked first team. And then, honestly, like, on one hand, I get it. On the other hand, it's kind of a crazy pick. Deku Cole, first team, after being he's a great player.
He's going to be the one. I mean,
yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, he's probably going to be the one who carries this team there. I mean, he's going to be the primary. To me, I think he's the primary guy.
Yeah, and we're buying in on his talent, and we're buying in on how typically, not last year, their freaking year they almost made the Sweet 16, notwithstanding, Oakland always has that guard, that guy who just carries so much of the load.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and that's exactly what happened. Although last year the guy carrying the load was Trey Townsend, but now you can so our second team. So we have AJ McKee on our second team, and I could see the argument where you'd flip DQ Cole and AJ McKee around.
I think, honestly, I could see Pratt and McKee. I think so. Our second team starts off with AJ McKee and Eric Pratt. I think that is going to be, I could definitely see that as a similar situation to Bello and Jackson. I could see it where, okay, what do you value more? And that's how you determine which guy you like more. I think they're going to end up doing very similar things. Honestly, we had as our third guy on the second team, Trey Robinson. I could kind of see the same thing happening with him and Vincent, where they're both,
it's funny because I know
defensive players. They're both competent offense players.
And you know what? And I think I hate to say we're undervaluing Trey Robinson, but maybe we are.
I could definitely see him being a guy who jumps up onto that first team.
So
I could see him, whether it be, knocking Vincent off or, I think it would probably be knocking Vincent off unless both he and Vincent equally step up and offensively and carry the load. Because ultimately, the defense is fantastic, but being Defensive Player of the Year never carries the weight that.
No, it doesn't.
Scoring.
And that's funny you mentioned that because you're absolutely right. It doesn't. So we talked about Nico Gillette. And we have him on our second team.
And you're welcome.
That actually, it's funny because that's not the Youngstown State person I was thinking about besides Gabe Dines, of course, on this all-league team. I was thinking EJ Farmer, but all the rest of you decided Nico Gillette is the guy. And honestly, I don't think you're too, from what it sounds like, we may not be too far off on that either.
Yeah. It's tough because, again, they were one of those teams that had a ton of roster turnover and brought in a lot of impressive talent. It could be I personally had Jason Nelson on mine. I could see him. I also had Gillette, but I had Nelson on my third team. Utendal could be.
I think I had Ty Harper on there too. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, it could be a lot of different players.
Exactly.
So, and that's honestly where, with 12 guys who didn't make it last year on the team, that's where I think a lot of it got really chaotic and resulted in a little bit of
bag of squirrels.
Twitter hate we got, where you had teams where.
Honestly, I don't know if you noticed, but I think basically the spark of everybody's ire is the fact that we have Wright State tied for 6th, and yet we have what's his face, Brandon Noel as Player of the Year.
And it's so hard because we can't. Even if Matt were here, we couldn't argue it. We all picked Bello. I don't know what to tell you guys, man.
Everybody else picked everybody. Yeah. Everybody else picked them. We didn't do it, man. We didn't do it, man. You can't blame us. Don't blame me. I voted for Melo.
I could see him doing it just because, I mean, if it is going to be, they don't have the defensive, they don't become like a competent defensive team, I'll say. And it's just him and Hubricks running around shooting up, I could see him averaging over 20 and 10. And okay, fair. If they finish middle of the pack and he's averaging, 23 points and 11 rebounds, there's an argument, especially if, Jalen Jackson and Rasheed Bello split, especially if we're right and Milwaukee is up near the top, but AJ McKee and Eric Pratt split among a number of other players that we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, he's the third team and more another bag of squirrels.
Yeah, but then
although I mean I'm sure from what it, so on our third team we have Kentrell Pulligan, Gabe Dines.
Hold on. Quentin Morton
fine.
Robinson. Quentin Morton.
Oh God,
Robinson.
yeah, QMR. We forgot about QMR.
Yeah, so
and yeah, he's definitely. It's funny because I don't think I had QMR anywhere on my votes, but I mean, again, they're just so. It was hard after the first team, man. I ain't go front.
If not for that 2 weeks that I mentioned earlier with Purdue Fort Wayne,
yeah,
they have three all league players last year, and QMR is real close to making it 4. So yeah, I think if we're picking them to win it, no brainer second team or top 3 team for me.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So our third team. Who the crap is on our third? I know Gabe. We got Kentrell Pullian, Gabe Dines, Alex Hubricks, Faison Fields, and Justice Williams. We had all those guys on there.
And this is really where I was almost ready to make I actually posted it and then deleted it as I kept counting. I was almost ready to say, oh, thank God I don't need to do a we don't respect newcomers thing. There were a ton. This was nuts. What ended up happening is we kind of settled on familiar faces for the most part. Actually across the board. But
I mean,
there were so many newcomers. There were so many people who got votes compared to previous years. It was bonkers. I think.
Well, that's because I'm not surprised. I mean, we had more people voting this year on our polls than we did at any other time. So that's not surprising.
And then again, the roster turnover. Who the hell knows? I think we had. Let's see. I think we had 4 different teams that had 6 different players get at least some all-league votes. That is nuts. Like, object.
Huh. No kidding. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, when there's that much roster turnover, when there's that much coaching turnover that leads to that roster turnover, yeah, you're going to have things be all over the place. But yeah, from where I'm at, Hubricks, again, if he goes out there and just averages a bunch of points and, Wright State's competent, I think third team is, makes complete sense. Justice Williams, I don't know about that one just because I think I like I mentioned, I like the pieces they brought in. I think they're going to come in and produce. I don't know how well they fit together, so it might be individual production without a lot of wins, which will, potentially eat away at his stats while also not getting them high enough in the standings to offset that. Faison Fields and Kentrell Pullian for Milwaukee. Really, really like them. I am really interested in how things are gonna shake out for Milwaukee because Pullian was a starter last year.
Yes,
has been a starter. He So, in my eyes, Fultz is a starter. McKee is a starter. Fields is a starter. And then Pratt as a starter. I think those 4 spots are locked down. What is Milwaukee going to do with that 5th spot? That's where it gets interesting because, Pullian might just be, well, okay, I'll just say it. Maybe Pullian can be this year's Jack Boehlke. The starter numbers.
It's possible. It's entirely possible.
Yeah, but
you can see it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do they go with Duffy? Is JaMychal Stillwell, ready to be a starter? Do they go with Pullian? That is, I think, that's kind of where I initially had Milwaukee a bit lower than where I picked them. But that's the thing is, not even mentioning, so that's my thing is they have these guys set in stone, but then they also have, they could have essentially 6 or 7 starting caliber players.
Yep.
That is where I think they wound up, the familiar faces and having those proven guys, having 6 or 7 capable starters. I think that's how they ended up near the top of the poll despite losing Freeman. And I think that is how it shook out where they wound up with 4 all-league picks.
All right, so I'm going to spare everybody my degenerate picks for preseason awards. You guys can read that on ParHorizonRoundtable.com. 3 episodes is enough, damn it.
Absolutely not. No, we're talking about it real quick. I think if the season shakes out the way that we picked it, I'm pretty sure that Kaufman wins Coach of the Year. Bouncing back from finishing lower in the standings. Yeah, Milwaukee was higher.
You realize that Milwaukee finished only 2 spots higher, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if they get jumped.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm still,
and
you know what? These were my picks, and damn it, I had Bart Lundy, and damn it, I had AJ McKee as newcomer of the year.
You are insane for picking a freshman of the year. I get the pick.
I did.
Jeremiah Johnson from Green Bay. My thing is, a lot of times, like, the hoopla around him has been like, oh, they beat out TCU. No, they didn't. Come on now. If they were capable of beating out TCU, they would still have their point guard.
Right. I think that's the thing where, like, when you try to, especially in this world, when you try to look at, like, recruiting and things like that, you don't know. Like, okay, somebody had an offer at some point, a couple months pass, and all of a sudden, they have somebody better that they're on. They're not even recruiting that person anymore, but they still have that graphic that they got offered on their Twitter feed. So you're still kind of going off of that. I mean, it's such a dynamic world, so many moving parts.
To Johnson's credit, he was committed to Oklahoma State. It was acknowledged. So it might not be, but I remember, back when, I can't remember if it was Rivals or 247, they would always have like the top recruits in this school's history. And it would be like, for Milwaukee, I remember it was one of Derrick Rose's teammates who averaged 4 points his freshman year and then fizzled out. It was this guy, Shane Mosley, I think his name was, who never saw the court. It was Deontay Roberts, who was a solid point guard for a few years and then left the team. It's just a bunch of guys. Like, there wasn't a single all-league player or all freshman team player even on the list. Like, it's such a crapshoot because a lot of times those guys who are kind of, their star is falling as,
and this is why I'm taking responsibility for this list and no one else.
Okay.
If none of these pan out, I own this because it's me.
That said,
and I will say I'm the one who peer pressured Kyle into doing the same thing. It's my fault. If none of Kyle's picks pan out, it's my fault because I'm the one who pressured him to do it.
The other challenge with all this is, like, you ask us, like, if you'd asked a year ago, we were all hyped about Riley Sages, and she ends up redshirting. You don't know what the coach's plans for any of these players are.
Yeah.
So
I
that in mind, I when I picked Sarah Baker as my freshman of the year, I looked at, okay, where's there going to be opportunity for a freshman to make an impact on the team, because that doesn't really exist at every school in the conference. Who's actually, going to be depending on those players who, after asking a couple of people who's looked good so far, who had, yes, I did look at the offers a little bit. There were a lot of offers for Sarah Baker. I don't know if it's going to look brilliant or idiotic at the end of the year, but, as of right now, I'm okay with my logic on it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you are. And again, if none of them pop off, just let them know it was my fault because I'm the one who did mine and then basically made it so. Yeah, exactly. So
I will say, I think, and I put this on Twitter, we had a year where a lot of promising freshmen showed up, but none of them were, immediate superstars. Just blind, to what they can actually do. I do think this could be, I would not be shocked with how much turnover there is, how little, it's going to be, okay, you won all league last year, you did fine this year, you're all league again. I wouldn't be shocked if we had freshmen back on it, or a freshman back on it at least. I don't know who the hell it is, but.
So, all right. I think we can finish now.
All right.
All right, folks. HorizonRoundtable.com. That's where you can find all three of these episodes, along with all the rest of the episodes, all the preview week articles, and all the other articles that we've done. HorizonRoundtable.com. You can pull us up wherever podcasts are available, and you can pull us up on your Amazon and Google devices. So tune in next episode, and I guarantee you it's not going to be a 3-parter next time. Until then, thank you all for listening.
For that.